Alright, so we've looked at our interiors, we've checked our doors, checked our wall placements. What we're going to look at next is the structural elements of the house. We're going to look at the plan first, check out all of our hold downs, which in this one, pretty simple house. We've got 3 major hold downs. We've got those highlighted here. All that is a head of 20. Alright, so we're going to look at what our typical hold down is, which in your wall section is going to be a meta 20, unless noted otherwise. So this is noting otherwise, so in these locations we're going to be looking for head of 20s. We're also going to look at probably the most difficult detail to look at, and that's our gable bracing. This is one thing that is very difficult to get right for some reason, so we're going to kind of focus on that a little bit. So we're going to look at exterior real quick. One Simpson LSTA 12, 48 inches on center. Past exterior, those are there, so we're going to focus on the actual bracing part. On the inside, we're going to see a Simpson head of 20, 48 inches on center, attached to bottom cord of the truss. We're going to look at our 2x4 diagonal bracing, attached with 4 3.5-inch nails to intersecting blocking, top and bottom, which is called diaphragm, and that's going to be 4 bays or 8 foot from masonry wall. So in this case, it's going to be 4 bays. All right. Cross bracing and all blocking to be repeated 48 inches on center. So this detail, the X bracing, we're going to see every 48 inches on the gable. So we're going to go take a look at that. It just so happens we got our gable end truss here in the garage, the detail we were looking at. So we've got our head of 20 straps, 48 inches on center, fully blocked. All nails are in the straps. We've got our blocking, which in this case it should be 4 bays. Looks like we're missing a bay, because our X bracing is supposed to be nailed into our blocking as per the detail. So we're going to notate that on the wall with the framer note. We've got our X bracing here. You can see that we've got our nails at the top, more than 4, so we're good on that. Looks really good other than the fact that we're missing 1 bay of blocking. When we're looking at our plans, we want to look at our garage butt detail. We didn't go over that, we just went over the gable detail, but it's a typical, standard detail you're going to see. Make sure that our spacing's right, our bolt size is right, whether or not we get a washer, some do, some don't, so let's pay attention to that. Then what we want to look at is our typical straps on every truss. Make sure that number 1, we have a seat plate provided by the truss manufacturer. That's a vapor barrier between the block and the wood. That must be in place. If it's not, we need to notate it on the wall and slide in felt paper during our frame punch. In this case, we look good. All of our straps are nailed. Missing a nail right there, so we're going to notate that. Right here we have written for the framer, we need gable blocking 4 bays. This is part of our frame punch list. I want to make sure that we're communicating that with him. Then we'll just do this throughout the house, make sure everything's in. If not, once again, it goes on the punch list. All right, next thing we're going to look at is truss layout, truss engineering. We're going to go through, check, make sure all the bracing is in. We're just going to do a couple of quick examples and then show you what that looks like. So we've got our truss engineering here. We're going to do truss A1, which happens to be a common truss. There's 5 trusses, that's a quantity, single ply truss. Here's our bracing that we're going to be looking for. We went ahead and highlighted that. What I usually do is I'll dog ear any pages that have engineering on it. If it doesn't have engineering, it doesn't get dog eared. I go to the truss layout, I'll mark the trusses, that way it's easier to bounce back and forth between the 2 when we're walking the house. So we've got a common truss. I also used a girder as an example, A15G. Slide over to the girder, there's no engineering on it, all there is there's going to be nailing. So here's our nailing pattern. Top cord, 1 row at 9 inches on center, bottom cord, 2 rows staggered at 5 inches on center, web, 1 row, at 9 inches on center. I'll dog ear the page, but I'll also highlight it, signifying that it's a girder. That way when I'm flipping through the book, it's kind of easier to see what's a girder and what's a common truss. So we're going to go and take a look at these and see if our bracing is in and see if our nailing is correct. Alright, so we're going to look at some examples of engineering. In this particular case, it's the A15G girder. Before we look at that, I want to show you something real quick. It's what we call rat runs. This is going to be typically every 10 feet throughout the house. This connects the bottom cord of the trusses together and keeps them from moving. This is a rat run. Terminates into a girder typically, or a wall, or whatever's higher than the intersecting plane. So let's look at that. We're going to look at the nailing pattern of the A15G. We want to make sure we're looking at the right truss. Here's our tag. Bottom cord is 2 rows staggered at 5 inches on center. As we can see here, we're kind of squirrely. This is more than 5 inches. Over here looks a little better, but it's still more than 5 inches on center, so we're going to notate needing some more nails on the bottom. Our webs are 1 row at 9. We're covered on that. That looks really good. Our top cord is also 1 row at 9. Might be hard to see, but we've got it. Definitely more than enough nails there. Then over here on the wall, we've written what we found. A15G, bottom, 2 rows at 5 inches on center. All right, last thing we want to look at as far as our truss engineering goes is our detail if we have a broken truss. Now, to give your minimum requirements as far as the break from the end of the truss, top and bottom from the peak or the bird's mouth, it'll give you the length of the member needed. There's a chart up here to use. If it's anything beyond this, we're going to have to reach out to the truss manufacturer and get a repair letter. Alright, so we went over all of our interior elements, all of our structure elements. At the end, once we have our punch list written, figured out, we're going to get a hold of the framer. Typically what we'll do is we'll have the windows set before we come back to punch out. That way we can buff the windows out. Right now they're tacked. So we'll do our punch list, buff the windows out, fix any structural items that we found, any interior items we found, go through our cabinet blocking, tub blocking, make sure our tub decks are correct, anything that we have punch out related that's come up throughout the build that we'll handle at the final punch. And then after that, we'll be going for frame inspection once all the trades have went through, and on to the next.